Have you ever stopped to think about how we actually make sense of the world around us? I mean, everything from a tiny little leaf to a train journey that crosses an entire country. Well, it all boils down to a shared language, and that's the language of measurement. So let's dive right in.
So yeah, how do we do it? How do you even begin to describe the size of a tiny little sprout just poking out of the ground, and then use that same system to talk about a statue that's just massive? The secret, it turns out, is all about choosing the right tool for the job, the right unit for the right scale. And today, we're going to see exactly how that works. All right, our journey is going to start at the smallest scale imaginable. We're zooming way in to the world of small things, where every single tiny bit of precision is what really counts. And our first stop is the millimeter. You'll usually see it written as mm. So what is it? Well, if you take a single centimeter and slice it into 10 perfectly equal parts, one of those little slices is a millimeter. It's this tiny unit that lets us get incredibly precise with our measurements.
So what kind of stuff do we actually measure with millimeters? Think about things where tiny differences matter. Like the length of a brand new sprout or the size of those teeny tiny screws you'd find inside your phone. Heck, even the thickness of your own fingernail. That's millimeter territory.
And here's where the beauty of the metric system really starts to shine. You take 10 of those tiny millimeters, you line them up, and they make exactly 1 centimeter. It's that simple, clean, base 10 relationship that's going to be the first step on our ladder as we start scaling up. Okay, now that we've seen the world up close, let's zoom out a bit, out to the scale that we all live in and experience every single day. Let's talk about the human scale. And for that, let's say hello to the meter. This is really our go-to unit for everyday lengths. It's the standard for measuring pretty much everything in our immediate world. And, you guessed it, it's equal to 100 of those centimeters we were just talking about.
Now, the meter is just incredibly versatile. We can use it to measure the length of a beautiful sari or find out the depth of a well. But what's cool is we can also use its smaller parts, right? So a mobile phone might be about 13 centimeters tall. But for something much bigger, like the famous India Gate, we switch right back to meters, and it stands at a really impressive 42 meters high.
And that brings us to our next super important relationship. 100 centimeters make up 1 single meter. It's this straightforward conversion that lets us jump so easily from measuring a phone in our hand to measuring a massive monument. To really feel the power of the meter, to truly grasp this kind of scale, nothing beats seeing things side by side. So let's take a look at some of the world's absolute tallest statues.
Wow, okay. This chart really puts it all into perspective. You've got the iconic Statue of Liberty, right? She's 93 meters. Then you have the Spring Temple Buddha in China, which is even taller at 128 meters. But then, just look at this. The Statue of Unity in India completely dwarfs them both at a staggering 182 meters. Seeing them all together like this, it just makes those numbers feel real, doesn't it?
All right, we've gone from tiny screws to towering statues. Now it's time to take our final and biggest leap. We're going the distance, folks. We're about to start measuring the truly vast spaces across our planet. And for this job, we need the kilometer, or km as you'll see it. This is our unit for the really long distances, and it's equal to 1,000 meters. And here's a little tip to help you remember. That prefix kilo, it literally just means 1,000. Easy, right?
So here it is, the biggest jump in our system yet. You need a full 1,000 meters to equal just 1 single kilometer. This is the unit we pull out when we're talking about traveling between cities or even flying between countries.
Now, to really make this huge scale feel real, let's hop on board a train. Not just any train, though. Let's take a ride on India's longest train journey, the Vivek Express. This trip will definitely show us what kilometers feel like in the real world.
Okay, check this out. We start our journey in Dibrugarh. Just getting to Guwahati is already 556 kilometers. But the train keeps going. To get to Bhubaneswar, it crosses the 2,000-kilometer mark. By the time it hits Vijayawada, it's at 2,800 kilometers. And the final destination, all the way at the other end of the country in Kanyakumari, is an absolutely incredible 4,187 kilometers from where we started. Now that is the power of the kilometer. So, we've looked at millimeters, meters, and kilometers, but the real magic is how they all work together, especially when you need to mix and match them. Let's break down the simple but really powerful universal code that connects all of these different scales.
A Walker mentioned in our source material put it just perfectly. When you're combining distances, they said, I can add similar units or I can convert everything into meters and add. That idea right there, that's the key that unlocks the whole system.
Let's walk through an example together. Say we need to add 3 kilometers and 450 meters to 4 kilometers and 650 meters. Okay, step 1. Just add the kilometers. 3 plus 4, that gives us 7 kilometers. Easy. Step 2, add the meters. 450 plus 650 is 1,100 meters. Now step 3 is the crucial part. We have to convert those meters. Since we know 1,000 meters is a kilometer, 1,100 meters becomes 1 kilometer and 100 meters. And for the final step, we just combine everything. Our 7 kilometers plus that new 1 kilometer and 100 meters gives us our final answer, 8 kilometers and 100 meters. See, it all just clicks into place.
So, when you boil it all down, here's the most important thing to remember. Think of these units as different tools, each one perfect for a specific job. When you need precision, when every single little detail matters, you grab your smaller units, the millimeter and the centimeter. But when you need to understand scale, when you're talking about vastness and huge distances, you switch to your larger tools, the meter and the kilometer.
What a journey we've been on, huh? We started out by looking at the world through the lens of a tiny millimeter. Then we zoomed out to explore our everyday lives with the meter. And finally, we traveled across huge landscapes using the kilometer. Each one of these units is like a different lens that gives us a totally unique way to see and make sense of our world.
So in just a few minutes, we've measured everything from a tiny plant sprout all the way to the length of an entire country. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we keep exploring our universe, from the microscopic all the way out to the cosmic, what new things are we going to need to measure next?